Ya Ali Madad, and welcome everyone to this Zoom session of August 18th, 2020 at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today's topic is entitled Harnessing Knowledge from Sacred Wisdom. This is part 3 of a 3-part lecture series in which we are exploring speeches, sayings, and stories from the wisdom literature and learning to apply their teachings in our daily lives. First, let's begin with a Gyanan recitation.
साचीवाणी बोलो निता निता दर्शन कीजे देवा ना भाई सूता का पाता का जी पात तो साहिब जीनु नाम छे तेने जम्पी ये सा दूर माँ देखो दिल माहे वासे जे माँ चंपा फूल माहे वासा जी रो मेरो ने मारो शावसे आने अंतरा नहीं का तिला वो जाने भगताई की जी शाह परातक बेठा दीना.
That was lovely, Rani. Thank you, and bless you. All right, Dr. Hassam, if you will, please. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Rani. That was amazing. Welcome, everyone, for the third part of Harnessing Knowledge from Sacred Wisdom. And with respect to the Holy Gyanan that was recited, Sayyid Imam Shah said this in this Gyanan, "Dear brothers, with love, have a gathering, O my believers, and speak from your mouth only the truth. Every day, seek to obtain the vision of the Lord. O brothers, realize your blemishes, your sins, and irreligious activities for the sake of repentance or purification." The other part was, "Dear brothers, the name of the Imam is holy and true. Remember it upon every breath. Do not regard the Imam, the Lord, as being remote, as he is present in the heart like the presence of fragrance in a flower like the champa flower. The last part, dear brothers, within every hair, every pore of my body, my Lord resides, and he is not remote, even by a distance of 1 grain of simsim. By regarding him thus, perform your devotions. The Lord is present and seated in the heart. Unquote. These were the 3 verses of this Ginan that was recited. And what a beautiful Ginan, what a melodious Ginan. It uplifts the spirit, it fills the heart, and it gives us the knowledge and the information that is so valuable in the practice of our faith. And as you have followed the instruction and you have heard the meaning of it, then you should see from this particular Ginan one of the most fundamental and valuable principles of our faith is that, like our beloved Imam says to us in so many places, the Imam says, I'm always with my Jamaat. In the same way, our Peers and Sayyids have indicated to us to say that do not consider the Lord far from you. You can see the analogy our holy Peers, in this case Sayyid Imam Shah, is giving, is to say, look at a flower and the fragrance inside this flower. They are not separate. And our aim is to achieve that kind of realization that we are not separate than our Imam. We are spiritually close to him. As Imam Sultan Muhammad alayhi salam had said, we move and have our being in him. And Sayyid Imam Shah goes so far as to say that every pore of our body has its presence. And you have to understand that because it is the non-understanding and the non-realization that takes us away from that blessing. So this was a little bit of a gist of this Ginan. And as you probably realize how wonderfully full of wisdom it is when we understand the meaning and look at the melody of the and the way in which it was presented, it's truly uplifting and truly radiating in our hearts. So now, today, harnessing knowledge from sacred wisdom, let me here begin by setting up a backdrop against which many things can be said, but at least an important message needs to be conveyed related to this notion of our awareness and the notion of our understanding as to how we can ensure that we remain in the same page as our faith and the Imam expects us to be. What are some of the fundamental issues that we need to really ensure that we remain in constant remembrance and in constant understanding about, when I say remembrance, what's going on into my mind is to say to you the notion of zikr, the notion of remembrance. And what is that? That is the basis by which we need to be able to ensure that our consciousness, our awareness is always raised not only for this world, but for the hereafter. The point I'm trying to make is to say, in the practice of our faith, please remember, always remember, every day remember, because that is the message in our tariqah. Whatever we are doing in this world is not only for this world, it is indeed for the hereafter. The day you forget that you are doing things for the hereafter is that very day you lost your reward. Because this life in this world will end, and every day we are coming to the end of that life. Whatever life has been prescribed to us, that life physically, materially will come to an end, and the soul will exit this body for the hereafter. That being said, that being the case, does it not make sense to say, and does it not make sense to constantly realize that whatever we do must be done for the life hereafter? Sometimes people believe that even the material things that you do, you can do these material things, but don't connect them to the hereafter or to the soul or to the spirit. I believe that is a mistake, because in the end of the day, remember what our faith tells us. The soul is eternal. So work for that eternal part. Don't work simply for the material world and the material realm, which will remain here and not go with you. So you always have to consciously, intellectually, by logic, by reason, link your action to the hereafter. And it may be even the act of sleeping. How do you enhance your sleep? So even your sleep becomes ibadat, or becomes validated and becomes fruitful as a benefit to your soul. There is one and amazing formula that you can do that with. In our faith, we are told, even when you go to sleep, and you go to sleep with good thoughts, and you go to sleep with the basis of saying some prayers, essentially, you are remembering the name of the Imam of the time. You are saying your tasbih into that context. You are bringing into your vision, your consciousness, your awareness, the presence of Mawla in front of you. Your whole night goes into ibadat. This is a blessing our beloved Imams have explained to us in our faith. And the reason being, remember, the name of the Imam is the name of the Noor. And therefore, that is the most amazing spiritual connection that we have. It's something that we sometimes forget, but remember it, because that is the essence and that is the key. Now, having said that, what is the most valuable, the most fundamental basis when we are actually speaking and saying something about our own faith and practice? In the past, I have made certain passing remarks about it, but at the beginning of this session, as we go into different pieces, I would like to give a very short resume or précis, if you like, about the notion of faith. Because faith is so important that I feel compelled that I should make that the basis of all the things I've said in the past, and certainly today, and inshallah with Mawla's blessing in the near future. So if you look at, for example, all the scriptures in the world, all of them, if you look at the teachings of all the saints, all the mystics, all the prophets, all of them say that faith is a prerequisite for anything and everything that we do. So they say the spiritual aspirant must first of all have faith. Now, in different faith tradition, faith is defined in their own ways, and it is very interesting to understand that. But let me give you our perspective and add on to it some explanation. From our point of view, from the perspective of our tariqah, how we view the notion of faith. Faith is nothing but love in the heart for Mawla. Short and simple. Iman or faith is nothing but love in the heart for the Imam of the time. Perhaps let me put it into a more exciting way. Faith, if you look at it truly from its root, it is intoxication. Intoxication for the love of the Imam. When a believer becomes intoxicated with that love, and through that intoxication, he seeks to be with Mawla, that is truly a manifestation of the faith. Let me add more explanation. The simple meaning of faith can be characterized by hunger. You know, when you are so hungry, what do? Well, it's an obvious action that human beings carry out, that we go and look for food to satisfy our hunger. In other words, this hunger is a demand from this physical point of view. This hunger is a demand by the body for you to put food in, so the body can sustain itself. The body can continue living. If you do not feed the body when the body is hungry, many things start going wrong in the body. And if you persist in not feeding the body, eventually the body dies. I think we can all agree to that. So now think about the same analogy from a spiritual point of view. Faith or Iman means this hunger, but spiritually. It's the hunger to meet Mola Bapa spiritually. Think about this carefully. If this hunger is not there, if you're not hungry for it, then what is the link that you have between yourself and him? This hunger to meet, this hunger to know, this hunger to realize the Imam is the food for the soul. And if you do not feed the soul, just as you do not feed the body, the soul will become weak, and eventually the soul will become powerless. I hope you're following my argument. So now reverse my concern. Then if the soul becomes powerless, then how do you make the soul powerful? Because when you have a powerful soul, so many miracles happens in the life of a mu'min. And to make the soul powerful, you will have to apply the message of the Ginan that was recited a few minutes ago. And that is the powerful message that says, do not consider the Holy Imam separate and far from you. He is with us, just as the fragrance is with the flower. Can you separate the fragrance with the flower? No. The moment the flower is dead, well, the fragrance will go with it. So think about this analogy. To make the soul powerful, you need to feed the soul with the right spiritual energy. And all of that spiritual energy is all bundled up in the holy name of the Imam of the time. Please say Salawat Allahumma Salli Allah Muhammadin Bali Muhammad. That spiritual energy is bundled up in the guidance our beloved Imam is giving us when he says, take the name of Allah, take the name of Hazrat Ali, take the name of the Imam of the time, take the name of the Holy Prophet, take the name of the Imams. I hope you are following my argument. So, the hunger, the thirst, the hunger to meet Mawla should be developed. Then, and only then, seek knowledge, and only then you will accept and have faith in the knowledge that our holy peers are giving us in our tariqah. I say that faith comes through that type of connection, because the Ginans have so many beautiful messages right from this world to the hereafter and eternity. But the question is for that meaning to unfold, not just from a rational intellectual point of view, but more so from a spiritual experiential point of view, you have to have faith. Do you remember what beloved Imam said? Our faith is a faith of conviction, not of convenience. And conviction means just that. And I'll say something about it in a moment. But let me add this observation, that a mu'min will accept and believe or have faith in the knowledge of the holy peers in our tariqah through the action of faith. And I have, I think, sufficiently in my last few lectures explained the position of the holy peer, and also mentioned where the origins of that office comes from. And you can imagine how significant that office is, meaning that our beloved Imam is the 49th Imam and also the 50th peer. Do not lose sight of this knowledge. This knowledge is important. Without this knowledge, you will not understand many of the practices we have in our tariqah, because they are taught to us by the holy peers. Let me give you an example from the time of the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, related to faith. Related to faith. One of the uncles of the Prophet, his name is unimportant, but it's mentioned also in the Quran. One of the uncles of the Holy Prophet, he came to the Prophet one day, and he was not yet a Muslim. He was not believing. He did not have faith in what the Prophet was saying. When Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received the revelations, and when he came to the people to preach, even amongst his family, there were a lot of resistance, not believing him, people trying to hurt him, people trying to discredit him. And that ugly attitude of discrediting people isn't gone yet. It's still there in many different ways. But it emanates from the evil of that time. But look at this example. This uncle of his came to him and says to him, "Oh Muhammad, you say you are a prophet of God, and you are in communication with God. And if that is true, why don't you ask your God to produce right here in front of us a tree? And I want the tree to be in a specific way. The trunk of the tree should be made of silver. The branches should be made of gold. And the leaves and the fruits of this tree should be made of various rubies and precious pearls and all kinds of valuable elements that we have. And the prophet asks him and says, so if this tree comes, then what? He said, then I'll believe in you. I will have faith in what you say. So guess what? The Holy Prophet goes into his prayers, and few minutes later, exactly a tree that was imagined by this uncle of his name, by the way, I have to tell you because it's relevant into the context I'm saying. His name was Abu Jahl. I'll speak about it in a minute. Abu Jahl. Within a minute, the tree manifested itself. Beautiful tree, just as Abu Jahl had it in his mind. He saw this tree, he could not believe his eyes. It was right there in the way he had imagined it. And it was indeed very real. So the Holy Prophet said to his uncle Abu Jahl and said, here it is. Look at the tree. Will you now believe in Allah Almighty? You know what Abu Jahl said? Abu Jahl said to his nephew, the Holy Prophet, he said, oh Muhammad, you are such an amazing trickster or magician that I can't believe it, that the magic you can make. And you know, when Abu Jahl said that, the tree that had actually come for him, of course, was taken away. And then, you know what happened? A verse was revealed to the Holy Prophet. And Allah says to the Holy Prophet, "O Muhammad, there are people out there whose hearts are sealed." Try to understand this. The heart is closed. And Allah says in the Quran, the heart has been sealed and there is darkness into their heart, and they are sunk into this darkness, upon darkness, upon darkness, and there is darkness and nothing but darkness. And then Allah says to the Holy Prophet, with this type of people, no faith can go into their hearts because they are sunk into darkness. Do you see the importance of faith? This is why our holy peers have said in our Ginan, and we recite this many times during the holy presence of the Imam, and says, Iman amaru salamat rakjo. We are supplicating and invoking our yearning to the Imam, and we are saying, Mola Bapa, no matter what, but keep my faith safe. Do not compromise. Let not my faith be compromised by others. This is the biggest diamond that you have. And if someone steals it, you are done. Faith is the absolute diamond that we have. And that faith is linked with the Imam of the time. And if that faith is ruptured, it becomes something else. You know what it becomes? You know the difference between faith and just belief? I don't want to elaborate on this tonight, but simply to make the point. When our beloved Imam said, our faith, meaning our dhara, is a faith of conviction, not of convenience. So when you have true faith, Iman, it becomes conviction. And what do we mean by this conviction? Can I say it to you perhaps in different terms? By conviction, it means that faith, Iman, is the certainty of that which you cannot see, but without which there is no seeing. Let me put it to you another way. Faith is the certainty of the invisible that makes the visible possible. If you can follow this logic, you will understand what I mean. On the other hand, if the faith is ruptured from its root, then what happens? It simply becomes a convenient belief. And belief is a cover-up for your insecurity. Let me repeat this. Belief, in this particular definition, simply it's a cover-up. You're covering up things for your own security, and you are believing in it because you want to believe in that, and that's it. There is no conviction. That is why in our dua, we say, La ilaha illallahul malikul haqqul yaqeen, the truth of certainty. This is Iman. This is Iman. So, if you have that hunger for Mola Bapa in your heart, in your soul, in your thinking, in your actions, in the things that you do, if that hunger is there, that yearning is there, what happens? Then, after listening to the teachings of our faith, either through our ginans, our kasidas, mankabats, the teachings of authorized dais and our peers, you may say with greatest confidence that you will be able to connect with that deeper and higher spiritual wisdom that our holy peers are giving us through the Ginan, and understanding the spiritual blessing that our beloved Imam is blessing to us all the time. So remember, in this context of faith, that to gain true and higher spiritual wisdom, and let me just emphasize it a bit more, to gain the true and higher spiritual wisdom, the hakikat and marifat, without that hunger, it will not come. It's as simple as, if you are not hungry, you are not going to put food in your mouth. And if you are not hungry and you have been forced to eat, it will come out. Do you have that hunger? Do you have that thirst? Then develop it and hang on to it. Because that thirst, which is that love which is that iman, that faith, is the root of acquiring the highest form of this spiritual knowledge, this hakikat, this marifat. And this hunger, like I said, faith means hunger for Mola Bapa. How hungry are you for him? Or is it simply a passing phase? You know, yes, I'm thinking about Mola Bapa, I'm mentioning his name, I'm saying my dua here and there, I say my tasbih, but my worldly matters are so much more important and so much more demanding that hunger isn't that really there. But when I'm hungry, I can go to nice restaurants, order nice food, enjoy that food with maybe watching an entertaining program, inviting friends. All these are material things. Are you doing the same thing spiritually? Are you having your spiritual invitation with the Imam? Do you have that hunger for him? And what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? How are you connecting with him? Just as your physical body connects with the food through your mouth, within which you eat the food, how are you connecting your spirit, your ruh, your soul, with Mawla himself? How are you doing that? So you see, this notion of faith is so fundamental that unless you understand this notion of hunger in a real sense, and you know the real sense mean, your heart must explode with this desire. And our beloved Imam has given examples in many different ways. The Imam has said, imagine a child wanting to go back to the mother's lap. What kind of predisposition does that child have? This is what you must have. Go back to the source of your love and compassion. And to us, that is the Imam. This hunger I'm speaking about, as an analogy for faith to this Imam, is the secret of prayer. Please understand that. This is the secret of prayer. When you can recite and say a prayer with that kind of motivation within your heart, you are hungry for Him, then you will see results of your prayer. I'm going to continue this argument and this exposition, which I began yesterday, about prayer as a spiritual force in creation. So perhaps with the same title or the next one. So if not next week, the week after, we'll continue this subject, within which I will further explain this whole secret of the prayer. What is the inner secret of prayer that our peers have explained to us, our Imam have confirmed to us? The Holy Quran speaks to it. The Hadith of the Prophet elaborates it. But let me give you at least one Hadith, which I will expound, maybe not today, but it's understandable in the context of what I have already mentioned to you. So how else can we explain this whole notion of faith or hunger for Him, or the notion of having this absolute conviction? So you know, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what did he say? When you pray, pray to Him. Pray in such a manner as if whatever you are praying for has already been granted to you. Can you bring that to your mind, to your intellect, to your thinking, to your reason, and to your heart? Whatever that is you are praying for or wanting from Him, pray in such a manner as if it has already been granted to you. Can you understand that? Now, tonight is not the day I want to elaborate on this one, but this is your homework. You need to think about this hadith. And I will, with Maula's blessing in the near future, give you an elaboration, an explanation of that. And you will see how beautifully our Holy Prophet, through this hadith, has explained to us the inner secret of prayer. That's why prayer is a force, is a spiritual force in creation. And it is amazing to understand what this prayer is all about, like the concept of prayer I'm talking about. Well, this was the beginning in this session, and simply I wanted to make sure that you understood. I set the background against which many of the things needs to be said. So in this context, just slightly a little bit more in continuation, remember what I said to you, the analogy about the body and the food, and the analogy about the spirit, the soul, the atma, the ruh. How do you infuse love and power? So, our beloved Imam Shah Mustansir Billah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in his capacity as the Holy Imam and in his capacity as the 29th Peer, what did he say? Our Holy Imam said, a sincere devotee is one who sees me as if present before him. This is key, fundamental. Let me just repeat it. A sincere devotee is one who sees me as if present before him. And then listen. Whatever he is doing and whatever he is feeling. He sees me before him. Let me repeat that sentence. Whatever he is doing, and wherever he is, feeling ashamed to do wrong. Do you see the notion of presence, what it means before I continue? Our beloved Imam here is basically saying that for the true believer, he always sees the Imam present. Whatever you may be doing and whatever you may be engaged with, but always feeling ashamed to do something wrong. Obviously, you understand. How would you even conceive of doing anything wrong in front when Maula Bapa is there with you? Do you know this thinking, this understanding is the highest form of piety and spirituality? Because this kind of thinking and this kind of linking, what does it do? It brings power. Power to the soul and illumination to the intellect. And then our beloved Imam says, and listen to this, if an evil thought appears in his mind, or a desire to do wrong, or eat something that is not lawful to him, he must at once appeal to me. Are you listening to this? Maula is saying, if an evil thoughts appear, many people ask that question. I have thoughts that I don't like, and my thoughts disturb me, and they are kind of evil thoughts and so on. If an evil thought appears in his mind, or a desire to do wrong, or eat something that is haram, not lawful to him, what must you do? Our beloved Imam is guiding us, and he says, he must at once appeal to me. Means call Maula Bapa in your heart. Appeal to him. Right away, appeal to him. What is the answer Maula Bapa is giving? Look what Maula says. And I shall save him from the temptation offered by Satan, or from that evil deed which will be followed by punishment in the hereafter. Are you listening what Maula Bapa's answer is? I shall save him from the temptation offered. And then, what does he say? How is he going to save you? Even that, Maula is explaining. He says, I shall cast into his heart the wish to act righteously. Are you following this? I shall cast, I will infuse his heart with the wish to act righteously. Then what happens? Maula says, then this mu'min who does that, he will then act properly, receiving bliss and happiness in the hereafter. His life will pass pleasantly, and death will be pleasant. All of this happens when our mind, our thoughts, our heart has this conviction that as a sincere devotee, we are constantly seeing Maula Bapa in front of us. And when you want to see Maula Bapa in front of you, think of a picture that you like. And this is one that I like. And I always look at Maula Bapa's smile. And I pray for the whole Jamaat and for you, that may Maula Bapa smile like this to all of you every day, every minute, because that is the smile that will bring everything spiritually and materially to us. So think about it in this way. Think about the presence of Maula in this way. This is the way we have our relationship with our beloved Imam, out of humility, out of prostration, out of love, out of devotion. The true devotee always considers the presence of the Lord with him, in front of him. And never ever a true devotee will do something willfully wrong. Unwillfully things may happen, then seek forgiveness. But look what the Imam says. The very fact you think that Maula Bapa is right here in front of us as an act of conviction. Remember what I said about the notion of faith? How did I define it for you? That faith is certainty of the invisible that makes the visible possible. Use this meaning. And you know what? I am not making this thing up. Our beloved Imam Sultan Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to us that when you think of me, I think of you. And he said, when you think of me, even before you finish thinking of me, just remember how fast that is. Our beloved Imam said, I am near you. And what did the Imam say? You will have no way of knowing that I am there. But have faith and be 100% convinced that I am there, right next to you. Therefore, I'm saying to you that faith is the certainty, yaqeen. Faith is the certainty of the invisible that makes the visible possible. So if you have that conviction and that blessing, you can then purely understand this. And Imam Shah Mustansir Billah also has said, he who thinks of me, I shall think of him. You know the secret of that? What is the secret of that? Do you think the human being has actually the ability, the power, and all of that, that he can just say, oh, I am thinking? That's an egotistic statement. No. You know what the statement is? When Mawla thinks of us, as he does all the time, then our heart gets illuminated to think of him. Understand this mystical relationship. It's an act of humility, of submission, of prostration towards Mawla. That Mawla, I'm only capable because of the grace that you are giving me. And that grace and that mercy is my salvation. Because you are my Imam, you are my sustainer, my maintainer, my creator, you are everything to me. And in the end, when everything is said and done, I will return to you. Please say salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. This is our conviction. This is what we engage ourselves in terms of how we are into this world. And as I began this session, I began by saying to you exactly that remember, everything that we do into this world has to have the relationship with the hereafter. And our beloved Imam has told us, as our holy peers have told us, that I have granted you wisdom and power. And we must always remember, with humility, in prostration, with humbleness, this wisdom and power, because Mawla says it, I have granted you this wisdom and power. So we must ensure that we are able to filter this thing in the right way, in the right context, in the right behavior, in the right way in which Mawla can be pleased with us. So this brings me to the last point before I go on into this particular short presentation about faith, is to say that everything in the end of the day must be labeled and must be inquired and must be identified and must be analyzed on the basis of asking oneself, is my Imam going to be pleased with me or not? This is the key. This is the gold. This is the path and the door to open barakat in every possible way you can conceive and more. Will Mola Bapa be pleased with me or not? Look, if you consider him present in front of you, you have that conviction. You live and behave accordingly. You ask yourself, will my Imam be pleased with me with this action or not? With this thought or not? With his words or not? These are the means of our action. The way to respond to that question is to say, am I following the holy farmans of the Imam? Am I on the path of the Nur, the Sirat al-Mustaqim? If I am, you can be sure what our beloved Imam said to us with respect to happiness in this world and more so salvation in the hereafter, we will get it. Because the key to give it is in his holy hand. That is our conviction and that is our faith. So please have some thinking, reflect, try to put into action. Remember what Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah said? Without action, prayer just becomes pride. And remember what Imam Muslim sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? First comes knowledge, then comes action. So everything in terms of knowledge, imbibe it, infuse it into your heart, your intellect, your reason, your thinking. Try to put it into action and change the perception of how you do things. Do not be deluded because your mind and your eyes delude you by thinking or creates a delusion that my Imam is not there. He is there. He is witnessing every word, every thought, every action that we do. And don't be afraid by those who are misguided because they behave in a misguided way and they think what they can do to you or others or have done to others, it's unknown. And they think they have that freedom and the ability to do it. They don't. These are the type of things that when people do, they will fall flat on their faces. Because remember what Hazrat Ali said? He who wrestles with the truth will fall down. So don't take that to be something that you think I'm saying. But I'm saying it to you on the basis that these are the teachings of our practice and the conviction and the iman in our faith. It is a faith of the intellect, so have conviction about and through your intellect, because that will bring that enlightenment and that illumination. Right on. So now we can go on with some additional aspect to it. I know I've taken a little longer than I wanted to, but you know, the subject is such that sometimes it's better to say it and give it the details than rather to leave it at random. But the subject itself will come back into some other ways. So let me here continue, since we are focusing on harnessing wisdom and harnessing knowledge from the wisdom literature. Let us look at some of the teachings and quotations of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, as we do that, let me add a word of explanation. That did you know? Now remember, when I speak about the Holy Prophet, we in our tariqah of Islam, and I'm talking about within our own Ismaili theology, okay? Always remember, when we speak about Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course, he is Khatam al-Nabiyyin. He is the final of the Prophet to have come. Nobody in creation can deny that. This is a fundamental principle of Islam, but he is also our first peer. Always remember that. He is the first peer. And this is the teaching of the Holy Prophet as prophet and peer. This is fundamental. Then we will be able to understand more about the inner meaning of things as it applies to our tariqah. And remember also, the Holy Prophet, according to all Muslims, he is a prototype, meaning an example. And every Muslim seeks to follow his example. This is why whenever the name of the Holy Prophet is mentioned, of course we say Salawat Allahumma Salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. But on top of that, we always remember whatever Prophet Muhammad did as prophet and peer, whatever he did as an example to the people. And our beloved Imam, in the Sirat conference in Pakistan, when he gave that speech, he was very, very explicit about the examples of the Holy Prophet. So if time allows you, you should seek to reread that speech and understand that. So with that background about the Holy Prophet, let's look at some of his teachings. And you know that the Quran is full of it, the Hadiths are full of it, but I've selected a few that I think are of very practical nature. They all are, but hopefully we can relate to them very directly. So, Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there are 4 things that makes your body sick. Of course, we know a lot about the human body today, and we know a lot through medical science, through the science of nutrition, through the naturopathic sciences, through the homeopathic sciences, through the Ayurvedic sciences, through the sciences that helps us understand the balances of energies in various other healing traditions, and so on and so forth. But remember, these are all traditional and modern. But in the same way, when the Holy Prophet speaks about his teachings, not only it has a physical impact, but it also has a mental and a spiritual impact. So 4 things that makes your body sick. Number 1, excessive talking. When you talk excessively, you should think about this. Number 2, excessive sleeping. Number 3, excessive eating. Well, no need of comment there. And number 4, the excessive meeting of other people. Now, each one of these, you may relate it at your own level, in your own way, the way you think, but perhaps I can just add a line of comment. The first one, excessive talking. How can that make your body sick? Well, you know, when people have the habit of excessively talking meaning talking unmindfully, meaning you are talking without reflection, you are talking without thinking, you are talking without rationality and reason. That's why sometimes people say expressions like, oh, it's talking nonsense. Oh, you know, what he says is senseless. Now, Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam has said to us that if you have the habit of talking excessively during the day, it is going to attack and it is going to affect you negatively in your ibadat. Think about this. It's a farman of the Imam. But this is a hadith of the Prophet. And when it affects you that way, trust me, your body will become sick. You know why? Because your mind is sick, your body will be sick too. Because the body-mind relationship is a relationship. The other one, excessive sleeping. Well, what happens when there is excessive sleeping? Sleep is not just a notion of rest, which we all need, but excessive sleeping has other mental consequences. And I don't have time tonight to go into all the details, but just remember this, it affects a person's mentality, a person's state of mind. The third one is excessive eating. Well, we know that. I don't think you need to have an elaboration, but one thing is for sure, excessive eating makes the mind dull, the brain sleepy, if you like, and many other negative repercussions can be there. The body can become very sick if you eat excessively. And then the fourth one is excessive meeting of other people. So meeting other people is one thing. Well, I know some people will say, well, thank God to COVID for the last 4 or 5 months, we haven't had that many meetings with people. But even then, even today, you know, we are still meeting people at a distance kind of thing. And we are learning very importantly how to ensure that we are able to have the dynamics. But excessive meeting of people creates at a level beyond the physical exchanges of energies that are not desirable. And in other words, the impression that is thrown to the individual can be very affecting to the mind of that individual. So I will leave it to that. So that was one hadith. And there are many, so let me just continue. And then the Holy Prophet said, there are 4 things that destroys the body. So the first one was 4 things that make your body sick. This one here, 4 things that actually destroys the body. The first one is when you have worry. Worry, you constantly worry about things. The second one is when you suffer from sadness or grief or sorrow. When you have sorrow or sadness or grief. The third one is hunger, obviously. And the fourth one is sleeping late at night. Many people can relate to that. And we also know through the science of sleeping how people get destabilized into their behavior and into their action. If you continue to persist to sleep too late and you deprive yourself of the healing that takes place during sleep, and you have to understand the interrelationship between your physical body and your vital signs and your vital body, meaning the pranic body, then you will understand, very, very clearly why there is destabilization of the mind and the body through sleeping very late, because the whole circadian rhythm of the body is out of phase. So these are the 4 things that can destroy the body: worrying, grief or sorrow, hunger, and sleeping late at night. And then the Holy Prophet said, there are 4 things that dry the face and take away its happiness. So in other words, if you indulge into these 4 things, your face will kind of dry out. And it's going to take away the happiness of your face. And when people see that, it's going to say, oh, that's not a happy chap. Like people get that impression, that reflection, if you like. And what are those 4 things? The first thing is lying. Very bad. Very, 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 very bad. Lying. Number 2, being disrespectful, meaning when you're impudent. But when you're being disrespectful, particularly insisting on something wrong, knowingly, you know something is wrong, yet you insist on it. This is a form of impudence. But it is also a way of being totally disrespectful to the divine, to the laws of religion. The third thing is arguing without adequate knowledge and information. That way misleading people. That way making a point about your ego, the egotistic statement. You are arguing without adequate knowledge and without adequate information. You remember my explanation of the thing about, you have your personal truth, you have your political truth, and then you have the actual objective truth. So if you have your personal truth, which is simply based on your belief, because you want to believe in that, and then you insist, and then you basically have insufficient information, and you argue about that branch of knowledge, that's the kind of argument we are talking about. And then the fourth thing is excessive immorality. So doing something wrong without fear. The question is, when a person is being immoral, is there fear in your heart? You get a gut feeling fear, or rationally you said, no, can't do that. We are being immoral here. So is doing something wrong without fear. Even though sometimes people may think they are right, but they are wrong. And then they start doing something immoral. In the thought, they think they are right, but they know they may not be right. There is a doubt, and they may be doing something that is completely against the grain, and that is going to be backfiring to them. In the future, when I speak about the whole notion of how karma acts in our life, and the notion of intention and everything else, you will come to understand more clearly why our beloved Imam makes such farmans about the notion of ethics and how we must apply ethics in our life, and all of that encompasses the good for our life in this world and the life hereafter. So these were the four things that take away happiness and dries the face. Being disrespectful, arguing without adequate knowledge and information, excessive immorality, doing something wrong without fear of God, and so on. So four things that basically dry the face and takes away happiness. Now remember, the first one was lying. It's a very bad thing. Even if it means that your life will go, let your life go, but don't lie. Because if you do, doesn't matter what people think, whether you are lying or not. That's a different thing. You can't control people, but make sure you know in your heart and mind, with the Imam present in front of you, that you are not lying, no matter what. And if you are that strong with that conviction, then you will see that the truth that you maintain will eventually shine. And those who lie, they will fall flat on their faces, because both things can't exist. You can't have the sun in the one hand, and then, or light, or the sun, and darkness. No, it's either you have darkness or you have the sun. Both can't be there at the same time, because the sun swallows darkness. So understand that in this way. Then the Holy Prophet said, there are four things that increases, this is the opposite now, the wetness of the face and its happiness. The other one was dry and takes away the happiness. This one here is adds wetness, that's luster. You know, when something is wet, it shines, it reflects light, you can see its brilliance, if you like, its cleanliness, it's transparent, and it brings happiness. And what is that? First one is piety, second one is loyalty, the third one is generosity, kindness, and so on. The fourth one is to be useful, to be helpful, and to be needful of two other people, especially when they are not asking for it or without being asked, that you have made yourself available in that regard. So, 4 things that increases wetness of the face and its happiness. Piety. What is the notion of piety? What I explained earlier on about our behavior in front of the Imam. We always consider Mawla Bapa present in front of us. And our behavior according to that conviction, that faith, and that knowledge is called piety. There is no piety when there is no Imam. Remember this. When there is no thoughts of Mawla Bapa in our heart for the true believer, there is no piety. It may be anything else, but it's not piety. Piety means first make Mawla present in front of you. Then act, behave, think accordingly. Then this is piety. Secondly, loyalty. You know what that means. First loyalty here is to your faith. Loyalty to your faith, to the principles of your faith, to the guidance in the faith. Essentially, loyalty to the Imam. Even if your life goes away, you never break your promise or your loyalty to Mawla, because that is our salvation. Thirdly, generosity. Generosity, being kind. The utmost example, the utmost of this example is the Imam himself. Look at in the lifetime of our beloved 49th Imam. Look at his kindness and generosity to the Jamaat and to the world at large. This is the example of generosity. Look at the Imamat institutions like the AKDN and others, what it's doing for the people, for the permanent happiness of people outside. It is an example of that generosity. This is the generosity of Hazrat Ali and the generosity of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then to be helpful without being asked for that. And remember, the holy farmans of our beloved Imam is exactly that, to be helpful. Help others if you can. So these are 4 things that brings wetness to the face and which brings happiness to the things that when we do them, it brings that sense of joy and that sense of upliftment. And then, and this is a nice one, there are 4 things the Holy Prophet says that if you get engaged in it, it's going to retard, block, or stop your rizq. Rizq means your sustenance. And what are those 4 things? Sleeping during the time of illumination, meaning the time that is the morning time of illumination. I'm being very broad because I want it to be understood broadly. And right from that time to sunrise, it's a very important time. It's a very important time. And our Ginan speaks about Madrat. Farman speaks about Madrat. And Madrat is not midnight. Literally it may be, but it's not this midnight literally. Many people do prayers at midnight. It's amazing. Alhamdulillah, Shukr Mawla, don't stop. Do it. But Madrat is the period between 3 to 5 in the morning and 4 to 5 is the period of one's early morning prayers. So this hadith says that in reference to this sleeping in the morning is to do with that period. So whenever an individual makes an effort, and I'm not speaking about Bandi exclusively, whenever an individual makes an effort within that period to wake up and say prayers, then that is the opposite of what this says, meaning sleeping in that particular time. So sleeping in the morning between what we say this period of Madrak is considered detrimental. Secondly, it says not performing, or rather being irregular in your prayers. If you're not regular in your prayers, then that also can stop your sustenance. The third one is laziness or idleness. And in that sense of the term, you know, when people deliberately have become lazy and deliberately avoid effort, deliberately avoid work, deliberately avoid the basis of doing something, then it stops. It becomes laziness. And the fourth one is treachery and dishonesty. You know what treachery is, right? Treachery is betraying somebody. Treachery is being disloyal to somebody. So you promise to do something, and then you turn around and don't do it. That is treachery. You've deliberately betrayed somebody. That is treachery. And this is dishonesty. It means this is going to block and stop your rizq. Allah will stop your rizq. You will not have that blessing, the Holy Prophet says. And then this other hadith that says there are four things that brings and increases the rizq. So the last four stops the sustenance. This one here increases your sustenance. It increases your rizq. And what does he say? First of all, staying up in the night for prayers. Secondly, excessive repentance, to do tawbah. Thirdly, regularly doing and contributing to the well-being of others through charity and charitable work. And fourthly, prayer of the heart. Prayer of the heart. And I was speaking about this period of Madrat, prayer of the heart. So remember these: staying up at night for prayers, excessive repentance, regular work for the well-being of others in charity, and remembrance. Remember Maulana Baba Salman? Remember 11 times and never forget this, meaning the prayer of the heart. And when we say prayer of the heart, it means the connection the true believer has with Mawla. And that continued interaction through prayers, through tasbih, through remembrance of Mawla. Remember, there is no higher form of worship than the constant remembrance of the name of the Imam of the time. And remember the Gina that was recited? Every breath, every breath, every pore of my body, we engage ourselves in that kind of presence. And you know, there is a beautiful hadith of the Holy Prophet that he said that when you gain this kind of knowledge, and when you communicate this type of knowledge to others, and when they, through that process of communication, when they receive that knowledge, and they are grateful that you shared with them this knowledge, it says, this act of your knowledge, the fact you shared that knowledge, will be to your favor on the day of judgment. It will come. It will come. The peers, the prophets, will tell the Imam that, look at this person shared this knowledge and brought information or enlightenment to this other person, and that will stand to your favor. So the Holy Prophet said, do not cease to continually share that knowledge. And besides, I can only tell you this: read the Diamond Jubilee Farman of Hazrat Imam made in Atlanta, What did Hazrat Imam say about being a da'i and sharing knowledge? He said it elsewhere too, but just read this one and see what it says. And you'll be wonderstruck at what our beloved Imam is saying. And ask yourself, am I following this farman of the Imam? Am I in alignment with that? So that is important. And then just continue with a few more of the sayings, which I think would be nice. And that is, look, Mawla Ali said, this is the sayings of Mawla Ali. Mawla Ali sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, the man of least capacity is the one who shows himself incapable of self-correction. So when you realize yourself that you need correction, but you're incapable of that self-correction, in other words, you don't even admit that you need correction, Mawla Ali says, this is the man of least capacity. Very sad. Then Mawla Ali said, one who praises you for qualities you lack will next be found blaming you for faults not yours. Isn't that so true we see in this world? People will praise other people for the sake of making them look good, right? So one who praises you for quality that you lack. And you know, that happens all the time into this particular cycle of time in the world in which we live. That, you know, people will say things, they are not true. Those people don't have those qualities, but they'll say it because maybe a political truth. But Mawla Ali says, the one who praises you for quality you lack, you better be careful, because that same person will next be found blaming you for faults that are not yours. So you may not be at fault, but they'll blame you. They'll blame you for it. Then Mawla Ali says, let no poverty and misfortune distress you. For as gold is tried in fire, the believer is exposed to trials. This is a fantastic teaching of Mawla Murtaza Ali alayhi salam. What does Mawla Ali says? Let no poverty and misfortune distress you. If you suddenly are faced with poverty, you are faced with distress, you are faced with a misfortune, Mawla Ali said, don't get distressed. Don't get distressed. There's a reason for it, he says. And then he's giving an example. Just as if eventually you need to mold something from gold, you put that gold in the fire, into a mold of some kind, to make some kind of an ornament out of that gold. And when the ornament is made, wow, it's so valuable. In fact, it becomes more valuable than the lump of gold itself. So Mawla Ali alayhi salam says that the believer, the mu'min, is also exposed to trials. So what must you do in that circumstances? Because in another place, Mawla Bapa said to us, be patient and exercise your prayer. And that will remove that misfortune and that poverty and that distress. You just have to remember the daily prayer, right? And I've said it in the past. And then Mawla Ali also said, the worst man is the one who sees himself as the best. That is truly a statement of arrogance, right? When a person says, I am the best and there's nobody above me. You know, very much like Azazil said that he was made of fire and Adam was made of clay. He expressed his ego there. And Mawla Ali said, this is the worst person when they have this quality to say that they see themselves as the very best. You know, this is totally opposite to the path of enlightenment, because the path of enlightenment requires annihilation. It requires humbleness. It requires prostration. It requires humility. So you can see why. Couple of more, and I think we can then bring our session for a close tonight. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, people sleep, and when they die, they wake. Doesn't that sound contradictory? He said, people sleep, but when they die, they are considered at that time that they are awake. And you've heard others saying that says, die before you die. And then there is another saying of the Prophet that says that sleep is the brother of death. Sleep is the brother of death. Which means that when you go to sleep, it's an artificial death. And if you don't wake up from it, as many people don't, that sleep became permanent. But it's also a wake-up call. In a sense, no pun intended, because it says people sleep, and when they die, they wake. So when a person dies, you know what the Quran says? And when you are taken in front of your Lord, the Quran says, I'm paraphrasing that ayat, I don't have it in front of me here, but the Quran says, that soul who is taken in front of the Lord, that soul will say, Lord, give me another chance. Allow me to go back into the world. Now I know what I'm supposed to do. Now I am awake. When I was in the world, I was sleeping, even though I was awake and in the material world doing what I did. But actually, compared to when I died and when I realized what happened after that, then I woke up. But I woke up too late. So Lord, give me another chance. And you know what the Quran says? Allah says in the Quran that you are nothing but a deceiver, a liar. Every time I've given you the chance, you come back and say the same thing. So let us not be into that category. Let us make sure, as our faith demands of us, die before you die. Achieve that ultimate mercy and grace while you are still alive into this world. And pray for that. Pray for that, that you may not be excluded from that paradise. This is the prayer our beloved Imam teaches us. And he says, don't ask for paradise. Understand this. Don't ask for paradise. Rather, pray in such a manner, ask Mawla not to exclude you from paradise. You think about this. This is an amazing secret. And if you understand it, then you will gain from it. Faiza, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Hassam. That was wonderful. So now, shall we move on to a Q&A session for a little while?
Yes, if you like.
Okay, terrific. So I'm going to open the chat if anybody would like to put your questions in the chat. And alternatively, if you'd like to raise your hand electronically, that can be done under the participants heading on your screen. And I will call on you to verbally ask your question to Dr. Hassam if you so wish. Looks like we've got something coming in the chat already. And if anyone has relevant questions to tonight's topic in particular, that would be terrific. We'd love to hear your questions. So there's a question here that says, why were we created? I understand the purpose of the soul is to go back to the nur of Allah, but why did Allah separate us from Him in the first place? And since it was His decision, why do we have to face these trials and tribulations to get back to Him and become one with Him?
Wow, the question is in itself worthy of a longer presentation, but let me at least give you the punchline. And the punchline is this, that the whole process of the purpose of creation was, as already stated in the question, is for us to inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun, he from whom we have come, to whom we will return. That is the ultimate base of it. Everything else are details. Now, why must you go to these trials and tribulation? It says in the Quran, it says in the Hadith, it says in the Ginans. Whatever trial and tribulation we are going through is because of our own karma, because of our own cause that we have put into motion, and this is the reaction of what we are going. So why Allah separated us, as you ask in the question, is because even when the souls were put into question, if I can put this way, in the spiritual ocean, we had lost the realization of who was our creator. And in order to gain back that realization, the human being was sent into the process of creation and evolution until the time they achieved a superior state, like our beloved Imam said in a Farman, that the human being is Allah's greatest creation, highest creation. And in that context, we must live according to the label and norm given to us as greatest creation, and understand the whole purpose is to worship him so we can get back into him, rather than wandering in the universe into various forms and shapes.
Thank you. Okay, there's another question in the chat here, and it says, this is a request to Dr. Hassam. Last Tuesday, you explained that we do not need to be concerned with Ingla, Pingla, and Sushuma Nares. Could you please speak to whether we need to repeat the word in tandem with our breathing? Also, is it necessary to focus between the eyebrows or the heart or any other part of the body?
I will simply tell you this. Follow what our beloved Imam has guided to do under this circumstance. Do not add, do not subtract, do not spin it any other way, do not change it, do not go out of the meaning what Mola Bapa has said to be done. And let me respond very clearly. No breathing, no techniques, no Ingala, Pingala, Sukshmara. None of that is today relevant in the context of what the beloved Imam has explained. So go back and remember what our beloved Imam has said that you should do in the context of your prayer.
Thank you. And there's another question that says, what did you mean by don't exclude me from paradise, when we shouldn't ask for paradise since it is not our goal?
That was your homework, so I'm not going to give you the answer. What I mentioned to you about that is a prayer Imam Shah Mustansir Billah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned to us. And he said that you may be seeking for paradise, but he said, don't seek. Because you know what? Those whom the Imam has said, my beloved spiritual children, you are in paradise. Did you know Jamaat Khana is paradise on earth? If you understand what I'm saying. I can't speak so openly about because it's a matter of practice, but remember, in our context, Jamaat Khana itself is paradise on earth. And if you can make the relationship in your heart, like I said, you remember what I said about Iman of faith? It is that hunger you have for Mawla in your heart, in your soul, in your thoughts. That is paradise. Getting intoxicated with Maula's presence and thought is paradise. So don't ask for it, you already have it. Therefore, Maula says, ask that you not be excluded from that. You're already in it. So it is for those who eventually, when they are blessed with that blessing, they'll come to know what that paradise is all about. But understand it in these terms.
Thank you. Salima here has a question. Salima, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, yeah, limited ALWAAZ. Regarding the question of paradise, somebody asked you. My dadi used to tell me at the time of Sultan Muhammad Shah, a person went in the Mehmani and told Sultan Muhammad Shah Imam, please pray for me that I get paradise after I die. And Sultan Muhammad Shah told him that, don't tell me to pray you get paradise after you die. You are in paradise and you pray that you are not taken out from the paradise.
Wow.
This kissa, this story used to be said by my dadi every time, and she used to make us pray that Yali Bappa, amne chene tari hakiki shanakhat aap ane hamesha amne tari panah ma rak. Any panah ma rehu, eat jannat che.
Shukar Maula. Well, I didn't know about this story, but you know, this confirms the statement made by Holy Imam Shah Mustansir Billah alayhi salam. Thank you for sharing that.
Shukar Maula, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ali Madad.
Okay, there's a question in the chat, and it says, Hazrat Ali alayhi salam referred to as the Lord of the honeybees. Is honey sweet because honeybees engaged in zikr of Mawla Ali while making honey?
It's a wonderful question. There is a whole chapter in the Quran about the bee. And it is so tempting to speak about the chapter and to explore the verses of the Quran regarding the bee. And you know, the bee is such a magical creation. How they actually make that honey for the benefit of human being, and how many benefits that honey actually give us, and how many types of bees are there to do what they do. It's mind-blowing. You know, when Mullah Bapa say, you study Allah's creation and understand Allah's creation. This is an example. Now, the answer to that question is very mystical, and I hope that it can be understood in that mystical way. And the mysticism and the mystical aspect of that answer is that the honeybee is saying to Mawla Ali, is saying, Lord, you created me for a purpose. Mawla, you made me for a purpose. Now please, Mawla, help me fulfill my purpose. So he says, Mawla, make me fly to the right flower so I can sap, take the pollen and sap the sugar, and take me back to my nest so I can do the right thing. And you know the whole story about the queen bee and so on. And Mawla, throw your glance of mercy upon what I'm doing. So your mercy becomes the miracle of the honey that will eventually come out. And let that be beneficial to mankind as you have ordered. And Mawla, let me be. Let me be as the bee that you want me to be, so that I may continue to be what I should be. And there is, in mystical writings, I'm trying to remember, yes, in the mystical writings, it is said that this bee says to Mawla Ali, he says to Mawla Ali, what is it that I can give you, Mawla, that would make you so happy that I would be convinced that you created me to be what I should be, the bee that I should be. So Mawla says, okay, tell me what would make you happy. Mawla reverses the question. Mawla Ali tells the bee, tell me. So the bee says, Lord, Mawla, can you transform me into that beautiful, sweet flower, and you become the bee and come and suck the sap from that flower and gain this bliss by that thing. And indeed, the Lord makes himself a bee. He comes into that flower which the bee has become, and Mawla saps from that flower the nectar, and the nectar creates bliss in him, which in turn actually is the bliss that he gives to the bee.
Wow, lovely.
So there is a lot of it. When you look at all these creatures, we call them creatures, but you know, these are Allah's creation. And we have to understand it into that most useful, compassionate, and knowledgeable way. Nice question.
Very nice. All right, the next question is there no rebirth for Ismailis?
That is correct.
Okay. Next question is, why in the last part of dua, for some imams, we say Maulana, and for some we say Maulano?
You know, it's a matter of the way in which the Arabic language is, and it is purely following the grammatical rules of the Arabic language to make it pronounced correctly. That's all there is to it.
Okay, and it looks like Salima has another question. Salima, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Ali Madad.
Mulali Madad.
I'm Saliman's husband, Khalil Lalani.
Yes.
I just woke up. So I saw like you guys are having some meeting here about religious questions. I have one question. Lately, you know, like 2-3 years, I've been trying to be more spiritual, like trying to connect with Mola Bapa. So Salima is always there. So I have one question. I try to be nice, you know, within, like I try to be whatever inside me, I try to be outside the same way. But, you know, my thoughts sometimes go evil. You know, like when I say evil, I do stuff which I'm not supposed to do as a smiley. My thoughts go sometimes wild, you know, like I get a lot of anger and all that thing. And every morning when I get up for Bandagi, I, you know, bow down near Mola Bapa and say, I'm sorry, I did all these mistakes, please forgive me. And I keep on doing the same thing every day, okay? And I feel shy in front of Mola Bapa. I say, Mola Bapa, I'm doing this every day and I'm trying to ask for forgiveness every day. Can you please take out this evil from my heart? You know, like there's a big, I feel like I have some evil inside me, which is trying to force me to do stuff which I don't like it. So will Mola Bapa listen to me? And is it okay, like keep on doing mistakes and bow down in front of Mola Bapa? I'm realizing like I don't want to do it, but it's happening, okay? As a human being, I don't know, like, do I have any way of get rid of this? Because I'm doing Bandagi and Shukar Mola, I'm enjoying Bandagi. But this lack of knowledge, or I don't know what it is, but I feel like I have to do something else to get rid of this shaitan or evil in my heart. So if you can give some light on this thing, sir.
So 2 things I can tell you that inshallah with Mola's blessing will be helpful. The first thing that I need to tell you, that in this kind of habits of the mind, if I can put it this way, you need to exercise your reason. Okay, and I've been very specific, meaning that when those thoughts come, for 1 split second, you stop and you say, you make a rational decision, and you have to say, no. I know I'm tempted. I know I feel like I want to do it. I know that I'm being driven to do it, kind of thing inside of me. But my akal, my reason is telling me no, and I'm not going to do it. So the point I'm trying to make here is you have to connect your reason with your will. Connect reason with your will. And that few seconds of connection of your reason with your will give you that incentive and power to make that change. And once you've made that change once, you will see the joy and the bliss into that change. It will motivate you to, inshallah, continue making the change. So that is an absolute necessity in terms of taking action. Secondly, every single day, whenever you have a moment, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, before going to sleep, give yourself 5 or 10 minutes of peace without any distraction, but other people can be there if they want to participate, and read Mola Bapa's Farman. This is the medicine for the mind and the soul. Read Mola Bapa's Farman. Don't take them lightly and don't take them for granted. Every day, read Mola Bapa's Farman. Particularly, Mola Bapa made available Diamond Jubilee Farmans and this other book of Farman. Read Farman every day, even for 5 minutes, and every day like medicine. You have to say to yourself, I need healing. And for me to heal, I have to take this medicine. So this is the spiritual medicine that will eventually, as you read, as you understand, as you put this Farman in practice, all that thing you said to me with Mola's mercy and blessing will disappear.
Ameen.
Ameen,
But
ameen.
this is an amazing mercy, grace from Mola Bapa to us that will help us to come back into the right path and the right action and the right behavior. Read Mola Bapa's Farman every single day and consider it to be a spiritual blessing of the highest order as healing for your ruh, meaning your soul, healing for your mind and your body.
Thank you, Mishnah sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yali Madad.
Naseem, do you have a question?
Yes, I'm
ahead, please.
talking. Yali Madad, Missionary Sahab.
Mulali Madad.
Remember me, Naseem Chunara?
I do, very well.
Yes, sir. How are you? I'm so glad that every time
Alhamdulillah.
we are able to hear you and we are getting such a beautiful knowledge from you. Okay, I
Shukran.
wanted to ask you about this because now I'm studying something Islam and it's through scriptures, online course. So we had a question like that. I can tell you in English or it will be better in Hindi. No, I can carry on. That God created this world like in for 6 days. Other interpretation believe that sun,
Yeah.
moon, and all. But we have that interpretation that according to us, 6 days is on the faith, and that is for the Paigambar Adam, Paigambar Nuh, Abraham, Musa, Jesus Christ, Isa Paigambar, and Muhammad. So why only these 6 Paigambars are given the 6 days? Because we had 1,24,000 Paigambar. So why only the 6 prophet has been given this importance like of 6? So I wanted to know a little more about it.
Now, your question has 2 or 3 different layers, but let me begin with the last point.
Mm-hmm.
These 6 prophets,
Mm-hmm.
they are known as Ulul Azam. So there are 3 categories of prophets, Nabi, Rasul, and Ulul Azam. These are the 6 Ulul Azam. And Ulul Azam means that Allah revealed to them a totally new revelation that encompasses that of the past. And these 6 periods, characterized by these 6 prophets, have been taken symbolically by our great Da'i Al-Muayyad Fiddin Al-Shirazi, that in his articulation and explanation says the 6 days of creation given in the Quran symbolically represents the cycle of these 6 prophets in that following order.
Okay.
So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that it says in the Quran that Allah created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. And it gives elaboration in some other places that one day for him could be 50,000 years. And in another place it says one day could be 100,000 years. Both of them are kind of given.
Right.
Now there is an esoteric meaning to this notion of what this kind of creation constitutes. And I don't have the time this evening to go into all the salient details, but simply to say that we must understand these things symbolically, because they are symbols of the way in which time is tracked in the context of space-time. And we must understand when it comes to the Nur, means when it comes to Allah as the creator, that he is not bound by any particular rule as we are bound in space-time when it comes to the notion of time and space. And we have to connect both the metaphysical aspect and the physical aspect. And then we come to know, and you know, Mola Bapa replied to something like this in his Silver Jubilee Farman, when he says, remember, Allah created, he creates tomorrow, he can create tomorrow, and his creation is infinite.
Yes.
And in the physical sense, we can never imagine something that is infinite, because the notion of infinity is really a mathematical construct or symbol in the mind, but it doesn't exist outside there physically. So how do we reconcile this notion of infinity on the one hand, which is metaphysical, and the actual physical creation, which we know was created, and we have some understanding as to what happened in the process of creation and so on, and we are trying to discover now how this creation will eventually end, and whether it has some meaning with what happens in the beginning. So all of those elements, and maybe more, are part of hopefully trying to understand this conundrum and this idea, this metaphysical idea, which is not an easy thing to understand. But I can tell you, in many of our Ginans, particularly Moment Chitverni, that particular Ginan, our holy peers have magnificently described the process in such a way that I don't think I have ever seen this articulation given in that particular way. But again, it's highly metaphysical, and it needs to be explained with time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have really, your answer as I got my answer, what I wanted to know actually. I have got the answer. Thank you very much. Thank you. So kind of.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's a in the chat, there's another question here. It says, as a follow-up question, if we are a part of God, why do we need to learn to worship him? Does this mean when we die, we are still like individual souls?
The reason for the purpose of worship is realization. You are right in theory, but have you realized it? You see, the fact that you're able to say what you said clearly indicates that you are separated. When you become one, then you will know you no longer need the worship. And until you don't come to that realization, and realization will not come only through self-inquiry, realization will come as an act of grace, as an act of mercy, and as an act of compassion from Mawla that will uplift your soul and give you that enlightenment. And basically, when you are able to touch that reality and become part of that reality, then you will come to know you no longer need to be at that level, because you have realized it. You and he become one.
Nice. Okay, there's another question. It says, I have heard that saying Salawat at midnight and before Bangi is especially powerful. Is this true?
You can say Salawat any time, including the times you have mentioned. And as I mentioned in my talk, I think it was yesterday, and the extended explanation I gave about the holy salawat and the benefits we are getting in that salawat. So you can say your salawat any time of the day, any time of the night. There is no restriction.
Okay, and maybe one last question for the evening.
Thank you.
Okay, there's last question here is, what is the difference between praying and bowl silence praying?
Sorry, there was an echo and I couldn't.
Sorry, there was, yes. The question is, what is the difference between praying and bowl silence praying?
Praying at home and silence praying?
Between praying, the difference between praying and bowl silence praying. Bowl silence praying.
Bowl. Oh, bowl. You have to be very careful how you say things regarding such spiritual matters. I always try to say that they must be kept very personal, and personal engagement into that is personal engagement. And when you say what is the difference, it's hard to say, because both of silent praying is silent praying, and the activity related to your word is the activity related to your word in accordance to the directive and guidance given by the Imam. So try to maintain that balance and that understanding.
Thank you. There's just one more question. Somebody is asking if you could repeat. She says, can you repeat what you just said regarding there is no rebirth for Ismailis?
Yes, the question was, is there rebirth for Ismailis, so to speak? And my answer is no, because in our tariqah, if you have followed the farmans of the Imam, and I mean follow the farmans of the Imam, and you have practiced your faith in accordance with the guidance of our beloved Imam, and you have fulfilled your spiritual and your material obligation, as our beloved Imam has explained, there is no coming back into this world. So there is no rebirth into this world. But the condition is, you have to have followed the holy farmans of the Imam. You have to have fulfilled your religious duties and obligation, and you have to have been farman bardari. So the reference, which is always given in the farman itself, but at the same time, the reference is given in Ginan that says, farman mane feratare, meaning if you have been in the path of the Nur, Sirat al-Mustaqim, follow the Imam's holy guidance, and you have been strict in the basis of fulfilling your religious duties and your material responsibilities, then there is no rebirth.
There's actually a related question that says, if there is no rebirth, where do we go after death? Are we all asal mevasal?
Well, that always depends on the grace and blessings of the Imam, because our connection with him spiritually is what determines where we will be. And remember, the answer can best be characterized by the level in which your spiritual development is. You remember what I said about Iman in the beginning of this session today? How thirsty are you for him? How thirsty? So, do you want to be thirsty for him only when you die? And then you say, well, you know what? Now that I'm done with the world, now maybe I can give you some attention. Too late. Things in accordance with our tariqah. Remember what I said? Mullah Ali taught us, die before you die. Achieve that while we are still living. Then you can have it there too. But you are here in this world for that particular purpose. So you got to basically pay attention to that too. You remember what our beloved Imam told us? That there is a tendency in some societies to over-engage yourself materially and forget the spiritual. So now you are wondering, what should I do in order to ensure that I achieve and reach my spiritual objective? Well, you can do it here. That's why we've been given the balance of Deen and Dunya, that they intertwine with one another. And that's a daily necessity. Our beloved Imam say you live this life daily, not one day Deen, one day Dunya. No, every single moment that you live. And remember, Iman, the hunger, the thirst, the desire to be one with Mola Bapa is now, here, at this very instant. Every breath you take is Him. Every breath is of gratitude to Him. Every breath is sajda, prostration to Him. Every breath is the realization, my Mawla is with me. My Imam is with me in my heart. And I want more and more and more of that awareness, that consciousness. Then we are talking business. Otherwise, I will not want to characterize the opposite, but you know what I'm getting into.
Okay, and Nafisa actually has had her hand up for a little while, so maybe we can take your question, Nafisa.
Thank you very much, Yali Madad. My question is, why is that I feel that the firmans of Sultan Muhammad Shah has been given more importance than Hazrat Imam? I don't know, that's how I feel, but I don't know if I'm correct or if I'm not correct, and or how do I justify that?
Who is giving more importance in your
Sultan Muhammad Shah's, like a lot of wise in this pandemic that we're listening to, a lot of wisings and all these different things that are coming around. It's just that everybody wants to put more importance on what Sultan Muhammad Shah used to say rather than what has Imam's firmans.
Well, my own response, in my view, is this. I don't think it's a question of more importance. The question is that holy farmans of the Imam responds to the need of the Jamaat based on the Imam's decision and the Imam's wisdom and the Imam's desire. And other Imams have given explanation of things that other Imams have not. For the simple reason, the explanation is already contained by other Imams. And let me give you a simple example, which is a relevant example today. Many people say, oh, Hazrat Imam does not make farmans about the sun. So now let me ask you this question. Does that mean the sun is no longer important? Does that mean that because the Imam is not made farman, we must now overlook and not even think about the sun because the Imam is not said it? Does that mean that we now say the Imam is not giving importance to the sun? Is that why the Imam is not saying it? Not at all. Not at all. What it is that whatever was needed to explain and say about the sun, Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah said it. Other Imams have said it. It is in the Quran, it is in Hadith, it is in the explanation of other Imams like Imam Mustansir Billah. So now, do we need every single Imam to repeat everything that an Imam has ever said right from the beginning? You know, it doesn't work that way. So Imam himself tells us, like if you look at the Farman Hazrat Imam made in Dubai, I think it was 2013, 14, I forget the exact date, but there's a Farman, the Imam say, go back and dig the knowledge and dig the teachings of earlier Imams and bring that to the forefront. And he said some of that knowledge has been purposely buried, but bring it out again. So now in the act of doing that, we often quote other Imams because their explanation is already there and the Jamaat may or may not be familiar with that explanation. But whatever is needed for our guidance, for our salvation, for our enlightenment, for everything that we do in the path of Sirat al-Mustaqim are the farmans of the Imam of the time. And that's how I keep emphasizing and repeating. Please read Mola Bapa's Diamond Jubilee farmans and the other farmans he has released, and inshallah in the future that he will. So don't look at it in terms of who's giving more importance. Look at the context.
Okay.
Look at the explanation. Look at the context.
So
And
sometimes I do have, I'm sorry. So sometimes if I do have question, like you're saying, as Hazrat Imam does not a lot of time get into details like that. So you're saying that we can, it's okay to go and dig more into what Sultan Muhammad Shah used to say or what the ones before that to find our answers for that.
yes, I mean, the thing is this, always remember the context. Now, if Maulana has said something to us today in 2020 or 2018 during the Diamond Jubilee period, and he has said something about a certain practice or in the way we must practice our faith, that is it. Earlier Imams may have said something in the context of that Jamaat of that time, and we must then not mix the two things together. There are certain things that are matter of the essence, and other things are the matter of the form, how that essence was practiced then. So be clear in your mind that you are not mixing principles with form. So, a simple example again. There was a time, even during the time of the earlier time of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah, where ibadat was 2 hours.
Right.
Now, if you go back and read that farman and you say we have to do bangi for 2 hours, are you going to do it? No, because Mola Bapa has guided us and we are doing what we are doing today based on Mola Bapa's guidance. And that's the one we maintain in that practice. But bangi has not changed. The essence of bangi, the purpose of bangi, the meaning of bangi, the objective of bangi, that has always remained right from the very beginning. But forms have changed according to how the different imams have given us the guidance during their time, the specific jamaat, and the specific reason and context of practice.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, okay, let's end the session here. Any further questions that we've received, and we have received plenty of questions this session, so we will definitely address those in a future Q&A session. We have received so many questions, and we will get to your questions. I'm sorry we can't get to them all tonight, but we are collecting the questions, and we will get to them. We're grateful that Dr. Hassam has taken the extra time today to answer the questions that he has. Dr. Hassam, can we call on you now for some dua?
Yes. So always with utmost humility and prostration to Mawla, and with utmost respect that I say that I specially pray for the whole Jamaat everywhere. We all pray together, but especially pray for you, for your time that you have given this evening. And may Mawla forgive me from any errors that I may have committed. But Mawla bless you with hakikati samaj. Mawla bless you with strength of the soul. Mawla bless you with strength of faith. Mawla's hand be always upon all of you to guide you, to protect you, to keep you safe in this time of instability. Mawla accept your ibadat. Mawla accept your prayers. May Mawla always keep you happy, content, and fulfilled. May Mawla give you the strength to always express your shukrana, your gratitude to Him for the infinite mercy, grace, and blessing that Mawla is giving us all the time, every moment of our life. And may Mawla fulfill all your wishes spiritually and materially. And may Mawla bless you with Zahiri and Batini Dida. Ameen.
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 Ameen. Thank you. Dr. Hassam, on behalf of all of the participants, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to share this knowledge with us today.
Ameen.
Together, we ask that Mola Bapa continue to bless you and your family
Ameen.
and be with you in everything that you do.
Ameen.
We ask that Mola Bapa accept your seva and give you many
Ameen.
more opportunities for seva in the future.
Ameen.
And we ask that Mola Bapa enable all of us to absorb this knowledge and to incorporate it in our daily lives.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And
Thanks,
special
Dr.
prayer
Hassam.
for you, Faiza, and the other cause for your dedication, your time, and your guidance. Thank you.
Ameen.
Thank you.
Ameen.
Yali
Thank you. Yali Madat, everybody. Have a good night.